So it was a Farbrengen that was going into Tuesday night. So the Rebbe was connecting the theme of the Parsha of the week, Tuesday, the Shiur Chitas of Tuesday, with Moshiach and the Beis Hamikdash. So we're going to start from the second paragraph on the page where it starts from Ois Yud Zayin. K'moikein, similar to what he was speaking about earlier in the Farbrengen, there's also a lesson derived from the conclusion of the daily Chumash of Tuesday. It says, Vayel Avram made the tents, Vayava v'yeshev loinim mamre. He came and he settled in loinim mamre asher b'Chevron, that's in Chevron, Vayiven sham mizbeach la'Hashem, and he built over there in Chevron a mizbeach for Hashem. So the Rebbe says, first we need to preface something else about this, the significance of this event. We find in our parsha, before Avram built a mizbeach in Chevron, he built other mizbeachos, gimel mizbeachos. He built 3 mizbeachos. Well, the Girsa Achas, according to one version, it says that dal mizbeachos, but the Rebbe is going to focus on the version of 3 mizbeachos, as we'll see later on. Not only that, each mizbeach was built for a particular intention and purpose, as we will discuss further on. In the first mizbeach, Hashem appeared to Avram and he said, to your seed, to your children, to your descendants, I will give this land. And Avram Avinu responded to that by building over there mizbeach to Hashem. For what purpose? Because Hashem promised him 2 wonderful things. Hashem promised him that he's going to have children. He said, I'll give it to your children, I'll give you the land. And the good news about Eretz Yisrael. So he built a mizbeach of thanks and appreciation and so on to Hashem for those 2 good things. HaMizbeach Hasheni, the second mizbeach that we find in our parsha that Avram Avinu built, Vayetak Misham Ahara, and he uprooted himself from there towards the mountain. Va'ai Mekedem, and the eye was from the east. Vayiven Shem Mizbeach LaHashem, and he built over there mizbeach to Hashem. This mizbeach was not a mizbeach of thanksgiving, but it was mizbeach where Avram Avinu was davening. He says, that he was davening that his children should be saved from the people of Ai that they had to battle. The third mizbeach, Avram, and Avram made his tents, and he came and he settled in Chevron. He built over there mizbeach for Hashem, which is the Siyum V'chaisim of Shiur Chumash Hayom. It's the conclusion of the Tuesday's Chumash. So it's what was the significance of building a mizbeach in Chevron? Makim shemlichu bayis David. That was the place that they coronated David. V'sham kar subris, and over there they made a treaty with David to make him as a king. Shenamar, as it says, Ve'yavoyu kol ziknei Yisrael HaMelech Havroino, that all the elders of the Yidden came to the king to Chevron. Vayicher shlam bris b'Chevron shel fnei Hashem, and they made a covenant for them in Chevron that's before Hashem. So that was the significance of the different mizbechos that Avram Avinu did to mark certain events, to daven for certain events, to give thanks for certain events. To be able to understand the content and the meaning behind the third base mizbech, which is the main discussion over here in the Sikha. We need to preface and first explain the general idea of the mizbechos that Avram built in regards to a person's service to Hashem. The general idea when we talk about service and worship, it's talking about the service and the worship that was done in the Beis Hamikdash, the avodah of karbanos. Like to explain those in the commentaries. And when they explained what it says in Pirkei Avos, that the world stands upon three things. The world stands on Torah, on service, and on Gemilas Chasadim. So what is that service that it's referring to? The term avoida, service, is referring to the service of the karbanos. In the time of the goals, when we have no mizbeach, we have no Beis Hamikdash, we have no karbanos, it's referring to avodas atfilah, the avodah of davening. Why? Because tefillah is connected to midim tiknum, because the davening was established corresponding to the karbanos, and that's why we have three tefillahs, and that's why we have it particularly in these times. They have to do with the different karbanos. The carbon kosher mizbeach. Carbon is connected with mizbeach, ubepashtas, and simply put, kidei lahakriv carbon yashtarach mizbeach. To be able to offer a carbon, you need a mizbeach. Not only that, el shagam Hashem mizbeach hu meloshen zevach. Skip the parentheses. The word mizbeach is the word zevach. Zevach means something that's slaughtered for Hashem. Kaloim al shem carbon. That's for the sake of the idea of the carbon. Let's skip over the brackets to the next page. Top of the next page. Let's see. Second line on the page after the brackets. Valpiza move on according to this understood. That in the mizbeches, that they are primarily the primary idea of a mizbech is a karbonis that Avraham Avinu built. Mizbatas klolos avidose shel Avraham Avinu. It's expressed in the general service of Avraham Avinu, because we said service that is identical to karbonis. Ubemyuchad mizbech hashlishi. This is specifically so in the third Beis Hamikdash. Siyum v'chaisim kol mizbeches, the conclusion and the seal of all the mizbeches. So always everything that is much more powerful when you go at the conclusion. Since Avraham Avinu was the first Jew, Avraham was one. It's brought down in the Lashon of Chazal, meaning he was the one to not Lashon Chazal. It's a pasuk in Yecheskel. But the Chazal explained it to mean he was the first, the only one to believe in Hashem. He is the first Jew. Not only that, that fills some midah. That the first bracha of Shemoneh Esrei, which is again davening, is the avodah that's in every single day, including also Shabbos and Yom Tov. Shemaskirim ba'es kol ha'avos. That in the first bracha we mention all the forefathers, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. But how do we conclude that first bracha? The conclusion of the bracha is the shield of Avraham. Hashem told Avraham, with you, the bracha will be sealed and concluded. So we see this is Avraham Avinu's avodah is something that impacts and influences and has a connection with every single yid. It's understood. The mizbechos, and especially the final mizbech that Avraham Avinu built, since Avraham has a special connection with the whole Klal Yisrael and the special connection with Avodah, it has to be expressed in it, or that has to express itself in the avodah of every single yid. Yudches, bir toichnish mizbeach hashlishi, the explanation of the content of the third mizbeach, mizbeach shabon Avram b'Chevron, the mizbeach that Avram built in Chevron, makim sheim lichu bayis David v'sham karsu bris. It's the place where they coronated David as a king, and over there they made a covenant to accept him and make him a king. Ubagdama. And by prefacing, Shekol Prate and Yonim Shemasaperes HaTorah Torah Shebeksav Plusha B'Torah HaShbalpeh Oides HaMizbech Shebechevron. All the specific and detailed matters that the Torah relates, both in the written Torah and the oral Torah, the way it's explained about the Mizbech and Chevron. Einam Sipur Dvarim Ba'al Mechaz Shalom. It's not just telling you stories. Kim Chelik Me Torah Hira. It's rather a part of the Torah, which is about a lesson. Mavur Baruch B'Zohar, like explained at length in the Zohar, Ad Kama Mushal Loimar, how much it's out of the question to say Shah Torah He Sefer Shel Sipurim, that the Torah is a book of stories. The expression of the Rogatchover going, Kol Mashakasa B'Torah Hu Din V'Loi Sipur Chas Shalom. Everything that's written in the Torah, it's a halacha, it's not a story. Heaven forbid. U'b'chein b'inyan zeh mudgeshes achdusam shel Yisrael. Concerning this Mizbeach that was built in Hebron, it's emphasized the unity and oneness of the Jewish people. Concerning the city of Hebron, in addition to the fact that it's the city of the four, Al Shem Arba Zuglis Nipkrusham, for the four couples that were buried there, Adam V'Chava, Avram V'Sara, Yitzchak V'Rivka, Yaakov V'Leah, that there was the four couples enumerated that they were buried over there. Skip the brackets to 2 lines down. Ha'avis v'aymois l'chol b'nei Yisrael, the fathers and the mothers of all the Jewish people. Matzinu b'Zohar, we find in the Zohar shechevron u'mulshoin chibur, that the word chevron is from the word joining and union, inyan ha'achdus, the idea of oneness. V'oid v'ikar, in addition to this, and primarily b'niyas ha'mizbeach b'chevron he, the building of the Mizbeach in Hebron was for what reason? Because it was the place that over there they coronated David, and over there they made a covenant to be loyal to him and become his people. And this event of the coronation of David and the making of the covenant with him, Nisachdu kol shifti Yisrael lahamlich as David lamelch al kol shifti Yisrael. All the tribes of the Eden became joined and unified to make David the king over all the Shvatim of Yisrael. Kloimar, this means Tmuras Amatzav Hakoyim Shekol Shifti Yisrael Yichalukim Shefti Yehuda, instead of the previous state, before they coronated him in Hebron. David HaMelech led Yehuda, and the other Shvatim were led by Shaul and his family, etc., etc. So once this event took place in Hebron, Nisachadu Kol Shifti Yisrael v'Mlichu David HaMelech al Kol Shifti Yisrael. All the Jewish tribes joined, and they made David a king over all the Jewish tribes. So that means we find a double idea of unity. Both the word Hebron means unity, from the word Chibur according to the Zohar, and from the event that took place, it was a unification event. So the Rebbe says on the last line, this is the lesson that we derive from the third base, from the third Mizbeach, the conclusion of all the Mizbeachas that Avram Avinu built. Shabana Avram Avinu built in Hebron, that we learn out from this, Shekol Inyonei Avoida, all matters of service, because we're talking here about Mizbeach. Mizbeach is the epitome of service. The word service, like we said, indicates karbonis. Mizbeach Shalom Makriv karbonis. Tzrichim Lias Chadurim Be'inyan Ha'achdus. All types of avoida we do need to be permeated with the idea of unity. Inyan Shel Hebron, which is the whole idea of Hebron, Makim Sheimlichu Bayis David V'Sham Karsu Bris, the place that they coronated David, and over there they made a covenant. Now the Rebbe is going to connect it with the topic of Moshiach. Ois Yutes. Yesh L'Hoise, if we could add to this, Shein Yezek Kosher Gamim Agulas to the Lavi the Mashiach that came. This is also connected with the future redemption through Mashiach. Malchus David in Malchus Nitzchis. The kingdom of David is an everlasting kingdom. Ad Olam, forever. Kipsakin in a Rambam, like the ruling of the Rambam. Kivin Shenimshach David, once David was anointed after Shaul, Zacha Bekeser Malchus. He merited the crown of kingship. Varea Malchus Loyal Bonavas Chorim Ad Olam. The kingship is transmitted to him and to his male children and descendants forever. Shenamar, as it says, Kisacha Yeh Nochen Ad Olam, that your throne will be set forever. Malche Beis David Hema Oimdim LaOlam. The kings of the house of David are the ones that remain forever. But if a king will arise from other tribes of Yisrael, like it was amongst Aser Sashvatim, amongst the 10 tribes, the Posuk HaMalchus Rebeisoi, eventually the kingship will cease from his household. There is no continuum over there. Because the main idea of kingship is connected with the house of David. Therefore, also in the future redemption, Geulah Nitzchis, the everlasting redemption. Geulah Sheinachara Golus, a redemption that has no Golus following it. Tiyam Malchus Shabeis David, it will be the kingship of the house of David. Kipsagd in a Rambam, like the ruling of the Rambam, HaMelech HaMashiach Asid Lamed Ulahachzir Machzid David Liyoshna L'Mamshal Rashayna. King Mashiach is going to rise up in the future and return the kingship of David to its ancient times, to its first rulership. And Yamid Melchim Beis David, a king will arise from the house of David. Like the Rambam speaks at length, Al Dvar HaKesher, the Shnei HaMashiachim, about the connection between the two Mashiachs. Mashiach HaRishon Shu David, the first Mashiach, which is David, and Mashiach HaAchron Sha'omed Mibanov, and the final Mashiach that's going to rise from his children, that they're interconnected. It's one ongoing kingship and kingdom. And like the Rambam's expression in his commentary on Mishnayos, Mebeis David u'Mezerah Shlomo Bilvad. Mashiach can only come from the house of David, and even from the house of David, specifically from the offspring, from the seed of Shlomo HaMelech. Not only that, we find the Midrash Chazal Shemelech HaMashiach Hu David HaMelech. King Mashiach, that is David HaMelech. It's used constantly interchangeably. David Shmi, David Ba'atzmai, B'loshin Hayidua, Ish Tzemach Shmai Hu David Ba'atzmai. There's this constant phrasing that's used in Mamar Chazal and everywhere that we call Mashiach by the term David. That's how connected David and Mashiach is. V'ad kedei kach, to such a degree. Shagam bezman shvim time, also the time in between David HaMelech and Mashiach. Bezman HaGolus, during the time of Golus, David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. David, the king of Yisrael, is alive and existing, like we say, and we say by Kiddush Levana. This is going to be this upcoming Shabbos in most places. The Rebbe says that when we say the expression in the tefillah of Kiddush Levana, David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim, it's not meaning that he's going to be living and existing in the world to come. The Imkain, Aleph Ein Zeinim Yuchad Itzel David HaMelech Shari Kol Yisrael Yesh Lam Chelek L'Olam Haba. It's not something unique for David HaMelech. All Yidden have a part in the world to come. Should say also the same thing about every Jew. We don't say that expression by every Jew. Rather, it means something else. It's not talking about Olam Haba. Another reason why it can't be talking about Olam Haba, Beis Ein Zeinim Shayach Kiddush Levana, then it doesn't have to do with Kiddush Levana specifically. Rather, based on what we're going to speak about, both of these things will be understood. Instead, the intention is that he's living and existing also now. He's alive and existing as a king of Yisrael. As we know that the king includes the whole Klal Yisrael. Koilas Kol Bnei Yisrael includes all the Jewish people. Your heads of tribes, your children, your wives, from your wood choppers till your water carriers. So therefore, that's why it's connected with David HaMelech, not every other Jew. Because the kingship of David is forever, so therefore it's a unique thing that has to do with David, that we're saying David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim even now. And the connection is also based on Kiddush Levana. Why do we say this pasuk by Kiddush Levana? Sheheim b'nei Yisrael asidim l'schadush kemoisa. The reason why we make Kiddush Levana is to indicate the fact that the Yidden are likened to the moon, that just like the moon, after it becomes small, it becomes renewed again. The same thing, the Yidden will become renewed again, Begeulah David Malchim Moshiach, and the future redemption through David Malchim Moshiach, which means that David HaMelech is this revelation of this level even now. So the Rebbe says this was something that the Rebbe was speaking about by Farbrengen on a Monday night already, halachically already Tuesday night. So, or Tuesday, Monday night, going into the Tuesday of MarCheshvan. So the Rebbe says, Amnam b'yom sheni vav MarCheshvan adayin lo ba Geulah. Though on Monday, in other words, today during the day before the Farbrengen, during the 6th of MarCheshvan, the Geulah hadn't come yet. Aval became still a null. Munach ala shulchan siddur. On the Rebbe's Farbrengen table, there is laying a siddur. And when we turn the pages in the Siddur, we find that in Kiddush Levana that we take care to do it in the day after, right on Motzei Shabbos. Ubeniden the dan bekiddush Levana Motzei Shabbos kodesh parshas Lecha ba'al lein l'toiva. In our case, they're going to be doing this in the upcoming Kiddush Levana and the end of Shabbos, Parshas Lecha. It's going to be coming in the right this week. Oimrim, what do we say? Shemasidim l'schadush k'moisa. In part of the tefillah of Kiddush Levana, we say that the Jewish people will in the future be renewed like the moon. Umamshichim loymar, we continue to say, David Melch Yisrael chai v'kayim, that David Melch Yisrael is living and existing. What does that mean? We're not just saying loyrak b'shah she'omer zeh matzah Shabbos beis Kiddush Levana. It's not just that David HaMelech is alive and existing on Motzei Shabbos during Kiddush Levana. Kim gam b'yom shalifnei zeh, also in the days prior to this. Gam b'yom sheni zeh, also on this very Monday before we came to Motzei Shabbos when we're saying Kiddush Levana. Min harega arishon sheboy nasa David Melch Yisrael, from the first moment that David became the king of Yisrael, ad soif hadoros, until the end of all generations. So he is considered David Melch Yisrael. V'dimtza comes out, second paragraph on the page. So Mizbeach Shabban Avram Avinu b'Chevron. The Mizbeach that Avram Avinu built in Chevron, Makim Shimlichu Bayis David, V'sham Karsu Bris, the place where they coronated David. And over there they made a covenant, they made a promise to be his nation. Of David's nation, kosher im inyan nitzchis, the Malchus David ad olam, connected with the everlasting nature of the kingdom of David forever, ba'ofen shal krisis bris, in the way of the covenant. V'sham karsu bris, hainu shebnei Yisrael karsu bris im David HaMelech yimlach aleim lo'olam, that the Yidden made a covenant, a treaty, an agreement with David HaMelech that he will reign over them forever. Ad legula sidolove de David Malchim Moshiach, until the future redemption through David the King Moshiach. So the Rebbe says in Oischav, Al Pizi Yesh Lomid Hayran Neflam HaMezbeach HaShlishi Sheban Avram Avinu b'Chevron. From this we can learn a wondrous lesson from the third base of Mikdash that Avram Avinu built in Chevron, Makim Shemlichu Bayis David Sham Karsu Bris, the place where they coronated David, and over there they made the covenant, Shekol in Yane Avoida, all matters of service. Klolos in the Mizbeach, Vakarbonis Bavois Adam. The general idea of the Mizbeach and the Karbonis and the service of a person. Bisman HaGolos, during the time of Golos. Tzrichim lias kshurim v'chadurim im teichen ha'inyan, the Malchus David have to be connected with and permeated with the content of the matter of the kingship of David, David Malchim Moshiach. Because we said that the Mizbeach and the Karbonis, that's the idea of Avodah. So every type of Avodah has to be permeated with that awareness of the King Moshiach, of the idea of which Avram Avinu built his final Mizbeach, his final Avodah, was about marking the idea of Moshiach. The idea behind this is Kosov Rambam. The Ramban wrote, the Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman. Amru b'sifri. The Chazal said in Sifri, Afal pishani magleschem en aretz l'chutz la'aretz. Though I am sending you into exile from Eretz Yisrael to outside of Eretz Yisrael. Heyu mitzuyonim b'mitzvahs shechedachzuru le'iyu aleichem chadoshim. You should excel in mitzvahs, because when you return to Eretz Yisrael, the mitzvah should not be new to you. V'chein Amar Yirmiyahu, and so too Yirmiyahu, and we said, Hatzivi loch tziyunim. Make for yourself markers and signs. Elo ha-mitzvahs sheYisrael mitzuyonim b'hem. These are the mitzvahs with which Yidden are outstanding in. Kedei shelo yiyu chadoshim aleinu kishenachzor la'aretz, so it shouldn't be new to us when we return to Eretz Yisrael. Ki ikar kol ha-mitzvahs liyoshvim be'eretz havaya, because the primary idea of the mitzvahs is for those that are settled in the land of Hashem. What does that mean? Koloimar, kiyum ha-mitzvahs man ha-golus ein el b'chinas tziyunim simonim lekiyum ha-mitzvah b'shleimus. The fulfillment of the mitzvahs in a time of exile is only like markers, signs, for the fulfillment of mitzvahs in their most perfect way. Geulah asidah, in the future redemption. Because only then, when the future redemption will come about, will we truly be fulfilling the mitzvahs like the mitzvahs of your will. True, we have to fulfill the mitzvahs now also, but in comparison to the way we're going to fulfill the mitzvahs when Moshiach comes, that's going to be the mitzvahs of your will. The mitzvahs now are only like signposts, like signs and marks. Move on, since that is the case, it's understood. When a Yid fulfills a mitzvah these days, along with the fact that he's fulfilling the mitzvah because it's Hashem's command, the one that sanctified us in his mitzvahs and he commanded us, since he knows he knows that the command of Hashem for the fulfillment of mitzvahs in the times of goals is in the way of signs and marks, so it shouldn't be new to us when we return to Eretz Yisrael. So if you realize that the mitzvahs now are only a sign in comparison to the mitzvahs, the way he'll be able to do it when Moshiach comes, so then when he fulfills the mitzvah now, it's out of a yearning, a desire for that particular time they'll be able to fulfill this mitzvah in its most perfect state. Like the mitzvah of your will in the true and complete redemption through Moshiach, because he realizes this mitzvah is not the perfect mitzvah yet until Moshiach comes. So when he's doing this mitzvah, this creates in him a yearning to be able to do it in the most perfect way. Last line on the page. One is dependent on the other. The yearning and the coming of Moshiach. The more we increase in our actions and service during the time of exile, in such a manner, the tziyunim, that we are realizing that this is just a mark, that we are awaiting to be able to do it in its fullest fashion. We bring closer and we speed up the fulfillment of the mitzvahs in a way that it should be the mitzvahs of your will, Geulah mitzvah shlema, and the true and complete redemption. Rambam, like the Rambam rules, through adding in one mitzvah, whether it's machshava achas, one thought, dibur echad, one speech, valachas kam ma'aseh echad, and how much more so with one ma'aseh. Yichrias atzmer is called oilam kulel kafskos. He tilts the scales for himself and the entire world to the side of merit. V'garam loy v'lahem tshuva v'atzala. He causes for him, and for them a salvation, meaning he causes and brings about the coming of Moshiach. This is hinted in the conclusion of the Tuesday's Shiur of Chumash. HaMizbeach HaShlishi Shebana Avram Avinu B'Chevron, the third Mizbeach that Avram Avinu built in Chevron. Malkim Shimlichu Bayis David V'Sham Karsu Bris, the place where David HaMelech was coronated, and over there they made a covenant. HaMizbeach HaShlishi Usium V'Choisim Inyan HaMizbeach Shebana Avram. The third Beis HaMikdash is the conclusion of those Mizbeachs that Avram Avinu built. Umekivin Shekain, since the conclusion of it, Mizbata boy klolos v'ikir inyan avoda. It's expressed in the general idea and the primary idea of service, because Mizbeach is about service, and the conclusion is always, everything follows the conclusion. And that's the idea of the building of the Beis HaMikdash, the third Mizbeach in Chevron. Malkim Shimlichu Bayis David Sham Karsu Bris, the place where they coronated David, and over there they made the covenant. Lahoira is to teach us Shekol in Yonei Sha'avoida the Cholechad V'Ech Yisrael, that all matters of service of every single Yid. Inyan HaMizbeach v'Karbonos ba'Avoida Haruchnis, the idea of the Mizbeach and Karbonos and the spiritual Avoida. Hein b'limrat Torah v'kim ha'mitzvahs, whether in Torah study, whether in fulfillment of mitzvahs. V'hein binyan reshus, whether in permitted matters. Kol masechel yadashim shemayim kol derchecho de'eu. All your actions should be for the sake of heaven, and all your ways shall know him. Shugam binyanim elu huvu la'alach v'shchon aruch. This is also brought down la'alach and shchon aruch, that we need to do our actions for the sake of heaven and to know Hashem in all of our actions. Siyumam v'choismam, their conclusion, the way they are sealed, meaning ikram, what is their primary thing? Bebias David Malka Mashiach, with the coming of David Malka Mashiach, Mizbeach Shevachevron, the Mizbeach that's in Chevron, Makim Shimlichu Bayis David Sham Karsu Bris, the place where they coronated David, and over there they made the covenant. Sha'oz you call in Yonah Avodah B'Tachs HaShleimus, when Moshiach comes, all matters of service will be in the ultimate state of perfection, k'mitzvahs shenechel, like the mitzvahs of your will, the way you desire the mitzvahs. Since that's the case, even the avoid in the time of exile has to be permeated with this awareness. And how does that permeate it? The way the matter is expressed in a desire and yearning to the true and complete redemption. So the Rebbe concludes in Oischaf Aleph, v'yumtek yoiser, this becomes even more gishmak, shemizbeach hashlishi kosher gamam Beis HaMikdash hashlishi. The third mizbeach is connected with the third Beis HaMikdash. This Leil was explained previously. Shinyonish al mizbeach sheikra karban shmakrivim alam. The idea, the concept of mizbeach, that its primary thing is the karbanos that we offer on it. Koi al klolos avodas adam is referring to the general avodah of a person. Amnam noisav loza. In addition to this, harei ein inyan yoitzim de pshutai. The matter does not leave its simple sense. Sheikra shal mizbeach hu hamizbeach sheva Beis HaMikdash. The main concept, the literal idea of a mizbeach, in addition to the spiritual concepts, it's about service and every service of a person. Literally, the Mizbeach is talking about the Mizbeach in the Beis HaMikdash. Obalashna Rambam, like the expression of the Rambam is, Kivin Nivna Mikdash B'Yerushalayim, once the Beis HaMikdash was built in Yerushalayim, Nesru Kol Makaymis Livnas Ben Bayis Lashem Lachrem Carbon. All places were prohibited to build a home for Hashem and to offer them a carbon. El B'Yerushalayim Bilvad, only in Yerushalayim. Uba Har Maria Shaba, and the Har Maria in Yerushalayim was the place where the Beis HaMikdash Mizbeach has to be built. Shabbat Nemar, like concerning that, it says, Vayomer David Zeu Beis Hashem Elokim. David said about the Har Maria, this is the house of Hashem Elokim. V'zeh Mizbeach Lo'el Yisrael. This the Mizbeach for Oilah, for the Yidden. So we see that this location of Mizbeach is specifically in the place of the Beis HaMikdash. Val Pizi Hashloimar. So therefore, because of this connection that the Mizbeach has with the Beis HaMikdash, so we could say Shegima Mizbeachas Shaban Avram, that the three Mizbeachas that Avram Avinu built, Hem Keneged Gimel Mizbeachas, the Gimel Bat Mikdashes. These correspond to the three Mizbeachas of the three Bat Mikdashes. ובהסם לחילוקי הדרגס of בתי מקדושס, ישנם גם חילוקי דרגס ממזבחס שבהם. And corresponding to the different levels in the different Bate Mikdashes, the first versus the second versus the third, there's also different levels in the Mizbeach that's in the three Bate Mikdashes. Ubagdom. First, let's preface. When again, the Mizbeach concerning the Mizbeach, Koitzav Rambam, the Rambam writes, HaMizbeach Mekayim Mechuvim B'Yoyser, the Mizbeach, its place is very exact. Shenamar Zeh Mizbeach Lo'el Yisrael. This, specifically this place that was chosen as the Mizbeach for the oil for the Yidden. V'namar David b'Divram Yom, it says in Divrei Yom, V'echal Shloime Livnis Beis Hashem B'Yerushalayim B'Har Moriah, that Shloime began to build the house of Hashem Yerushalayim on the mountain of Moriah, Asher Nirel David Avihu, that was appeared to David his father, Asher Heichim B'Mekayim David, that was it was prepared in the place of David, Begoiden Arnon HaYevusi, in the threshing floor of the Arnon HaYevusi, and Chol Shar Prati Binyan Beis HaMikdash Boifne Miyad Hashem Alai Hiskel, like all the other details of the building of Beis HaMikdash that David HaMelech had received with Hashem's knowledge. The same thing, this particular location was by Hashem's letting him know where. Rambam, the Rambam continues. This is a tradition by everyone. The place that David and Shlomo built the Mizbeach, it's the place that Avraham Avinu built the Mizbeach and tied Yitzchak upon it. And it's the same place that Noach built the Mizbeach when he left the Teva, like we read in the past Shabbos that just was yesterday by us. And in that very same location, Adam Arishan offered on a carbon on that place. And from that very location, Adam Arishan himself was created. Amr Chachamim said, Adam Arishan was born from his place of his atonement. So the very place of the atonement of the Beis HaMikdash and Mizbeach, that's where humanity was created from. Skip the parentheses to the next paragraph. Moving, it's understood. This is the same in all the Bate Mikdashes. Like the Rambam continues, concerning Mizbeach, that the exiles built with Bayis Sheni when they returned from Bavel in the second Beis HaMikdash. The Rambam says that 3 prophets came out of exile and came to Yerushalayim with them. One of the prophets testified, according to prophecy, where exactly the Mizbeach has to be located, because it cannot be in any other location than that specific location that was the tradition, etc. But on the other hand, just like concerning the general idea of the Beis HaMikdash, there are different levels of the Bate Mikdashes. Even after all the qualities of the first Beis HaMikdash that Shlomo HaMelech built, it says in the pasuk that will be greater the glory of this latter home over the first. It's explained in the Gemara, the Koyal Bayis Sheni. It's referring to the second Beis HaMikdash will be greater than the first Beis, was greater than the first Beis HaMikdash. And if the second was greater than the first, how much more so that the third Beis HaMikdash is going to be greater than the both of them. Mikdash Adonai Kon Yedacha, it's the Mikdash of Hashem, your hands prepared, Binyan Adukut. It's the building of Hashem, not of human beings. Shehiyah B'tachlis Hashleimus, it'll be in the ultimate perfect state. How they move it, it's understood. Shekenu Gam B'negel Mizbeach. That's so too, it's also concerning the Mizbeach. Shetachlis Hashleimus, the Mizbeach, Mizbeach Hashlishi, Beis HaMikdash Hashlishi. The ultimate perfection of a Mizbeach is the third Mizbeach and the third Beis HaMikdash. So it's not just that the third Beis HaMikdash is greater than the second, which is greater than the first, but the Mizbeach which is like a central part of the Beis HaMikdash, will also be and have a greater level than the Mizbeach of the second and the first Beis HaMikdash. This is also hinted in the third Mizbeach that Avram Avinu built in Chevron. Lahoira is to indicate the klolus inyan avoda, general idea of the service. The conclusion of the Mizbeachas that Avram Avinu built has to be out of a desire and a yearning for the perfect type of service and the completion of the service. When the Mizbeach will be in the ultimate perfection, the Beis HaMikdash Shlish in the third Beis HaMikdash. Like we said, the more we increase and add in our actions and service in the times of Golos, as our Geulah mitzvah Shleimah the Moshiach Tzidkenu, we bring closer and we speed up the true and complete redemption through Moshiach. Especially when we increase in the matters of service that we learn from the Shiur Chumash of Tuesday, especially the conclusion of that Shiur of Chumash, and about the Mizbeach that Avram built in Chevron, Makom Shemlichu Bayis David, Rishon Karsa Bris, the place where they carnated David, and over there they made a covenant with him. That through that we speed up, we bring closer the time that we'll see with our senses and actuality in a revealed way as Kiyuma Shal Krisis Bris Bnei Yisrael, David HaMelech, fulfillment of the covenant of the Jewish people with David HaMelech. David Malch Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. David Malch Yisrael is alive and exists. David Malch Mashiach. David King Mashiach. But Loidak B'Tor Malch Yisrael, not only as the king of Yisrael, Kiyim Gam B'Tor Melech HaKol Olam Kulei, but also as a king over the entire world. Kipsakti Naram, like the Rambam rules. Shemelch HaMashiach Yisakna Sa Olam Kulei Lav Hashem B'Yachad. That King Mashiach will set up the entire world to serve Hashem together. Shenemar, as it says, then I will transform the nations to have a clear language. All of them will call it in the name of Hashem. To serve Him as one. And the kingship will be only and solely for Hashem.